Hi, my name is Julianne Jackson. I'm the Movement Building Coordinator, and today we'd like to talk about our 8 steps to justice. These were developed by communities of color and really help kind of navigate what a progressive DA looks like, what justice really looks like in these communities. District attorneys are responsible for safeguarding the rights of all Oregonians, but too often our criminal justice system fails our communities. And it's past time for our criminal justice system to put public safety and health first. This is why our coalition, led by the communities most harmed by a broken system, are calling on district attorneys to take real steps to justice. Today, we're going to focus on step 1, which is listen to communities. We want folks to build relationships with and listen to communities that are most impacted by crime, violence, and over-policing. With me here today, I have Danita. They are amazing. And Danita, why don't you tell us about yourself?
Hello, my name is Danita Harris. I use they, them pronouns. I'm the interim state director of the Oregon Working Families Party. I also own my own small business here in the Mid-Valley, and I've been engaged in electoral and legislative politics in the Mid-Valley for about the last 17 years now.
Awesome. And why do you think it's so important for folks to listen to the communities they serve, and not only the communities they serve, but the folks most impacted by harm?
I think that's a really big question, and there's a handful of things to take into consideration. For starters, our DAs are an elected position, which means that they are already accountable or should be accountable to the entirety of their constituency, so the whole district. And frankly, that just doesn't happen. One of the ways that we can ensure that that happens is by having folks that are most, and we know this, the data shows this, right? The most impacted by our carceral system, our criminal justice system, by and large as a whole, to really speak to the experiences that they are having so that our DAs can be more accountable and serving the community in the way that we most need to be served.
And do you feel like sometimes they feel like either our present representation or people coming to step into that role don't really have a full understanding of how this system really kind of it touches everything, right? Like it touches every part of life. It touches whether you're able to get housing, whether you're able to get food and shelter. Why and where do you think DA candidates or current DAs can find this information, and why do you think it's important to their decision-making process?
Julianne, I think you're absolutely right. I think that a lot of folks that are in this role currently or trying to come into this role have a very narrow perspective on the work that they do and the way that it impacts communities at large. There's a couple of things that are really important in this space. Their political philosophy actually matters in the way that they are doing their job. And we need to engage with folks to find out at the very root of the individual what that political philosophy is. In addition to that, folks that are currently in the role or moving into the role should be working with trusted organizations in the county and the area that they're going to be representing to find out what's really happening. So thinking about that in the realm of work I've done previously in food justice, for instance, I think there's a real opportunity for any candidate running literally anywhere to work with food banks and food pantries to talk about the communities that are receiving services and the way in which the DA can really show up for them in meaningful ways.
And have you seen a tie like in your community work? I know I see it a lot, right? Like I see folks that have gone through the carceral system and now now they're struggling, or now they're trying to kind of climb out of this thing, and so is their families. And do you feel like the disparities that are kind of at play in Oregon right now, because we know that there's a racial disparity in almost all counties? Do you think that plays a role in who's receiving services on other ends? So let's say like food stamps, like you said, food boxes, other different community services. So we're kind of putting out funding to clean up this fire. Would you agree?
I would agree. And I would also take it a little bit further than that, right? As much like we were saying before that DAs are coming into this role, not realizing the ripple effect that their footprint really has, right? I would also say that some of these other services that are being provided as well are reinforcing a lot of that. And they're not realizing how both of them play in the same arena together and the way that they actually advance inequity or can be the solution to inequity.
Okay. Can you say more about that?
Absolutely. We know that our carceral system is based on white supremacy. We know that. We also know that charity models are based in white supremacy as well. What's really exciting is that we're seeing across the state and frankly across the nation an awakening to understanding what white supremacy in a charity model looks like. And so they've had to take a step back and say we need to actually listen to the most impacted communities to learn what the root causes of hunger are, the root causes of poverty, and how that's actually being felt. And once folks started doing that and really doing the work to understand what the impact of the community is and bringing community members with lived experiences forward, that dramatically changes the way that the work is being done. And that's where the DA and these kinds of organizations have an opportunity to work together.
And where can, because sometimes I hear, and I've heard this in several different conversations in my work where, folks will be like, well, I want to talk to the community, but, that community doesn't trust me, right? Like, so how do we move forward past that? How can our candidates, or how can even, current DAs move past a little bit of that? And where do you think are some good places that folks can get this information? Maybe if the community doesn't trust them.
I think that's a really important question, and it's a very real barrier. With that being said, there are trusted community organizations found in literally every county. And that is where folks can go. That will be incredibly opening and receiving of this opportunity to really, again, work together to, uplift the needs of the community members most impacted. I think that we were talking about food justice, but it goes so much further than that. And there are real opportunities, but it's going to be about connecting with organizations that are trusted within the communities that they represent as well. And understanding that no one group is a monolith, but there is a real chance there to work with folks that are focusing on this particular issue and want to bring DAs in and help them along their own equity journey.
And how can we, as community members that are involved, right? Like, how can we start to have these conversations? Where are the access points that we have to our current DAs or, or candidates? What's the, how do you find the best way to reach out and ask these questions?
So for my role, which can be kind of narrow in its perspective because I do electoral and legislative politics primarily, one of the things that I work with are organizations that want to engage with DAs and thinking about what does a questionnaire look like? What does an endorsement in this space mean? But it can't just be, here's an image. You can put this on the voter pamphlet. It also has to be about developing a lasting relationship. And again, when we talk about the political philosophy that a person's bringing forward, this is an opportunity for this organization to say, we are aligned here, or we are not aligned. There's a significant misalignment, but we want to work with you. We want to continue to raise this. An example of that is Mike Schmidt when he was doing DA for the People, and they were really covering what a DA does and bringing that to Multnomah County to expand the understanding and awareness of the importance of a DA. There were spaces that he was not the most progressive on. And that gave the community an opportunity to say, this is where I can help you so that you can help us.
Right. Yeah, that's a really good example. I mean, I think sometimes, especially DAs, they seem so inaccessible. And I think that's really important to talk about. I think it's also, you brought up something really great is oftentimes we find, either great candidates or folks already in office that, that really kind of can meet us where we're at. But because we don't see eye to eye on exactly everything, we're kind of not willing to, to either, not to say that we should make concession, but we're not willing to have that conversation and say, this is something our community sees as an issue. Is this something that you're willing to address? Right. And so that's like, I really appreciate you bringing up that point, because I think we see that a lot. And I think, everyone is looking for like the perfect candidate, right? And they just typically don't exist. And so it's really, really helpful to have that thought process of how can I, as a community member, bring this to you, show you that it's meaningful and important. And I think it's also sometimes difficult for our elected folks to know who to listen to, right? So you have this whole group of people that's saying this is the right way to do things, and then you have this whole other group of people that's saying, no, that's totally wrong. And so it really has to come down to a personal philosophical alignment. Like, it really has to come down to whether or not that person can be moved and really able to understand what our community members are going through. So I won't take up too much of your time today, but I have one last question for you. If you could say anything to our Oregon DA candidates, our current Oregon DAs, what would it be?
I would say that the answers to the problems are found in the collective wisdom of the people that live in your community. And that means all of the people that live within the community. If there are folks that you haven't had a chance to talk to, if there are organizations you haven't reached out to, if there are folks that are doing mutual aid on the ground work with folks that are the most impacted, reach out, right?
Yeah.
Talk to folks and tap into that collective wisdom.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much, Danita. I appreciate your time and your wisdom. And again, step 1, listen to communities. We'll be back next week with step 2, and I hope to see you then.